Like
Yeah.
that's a real thing.
Absolutely amazing. And as long as we're giving credit to the National Weather Service, let's talk about this because they talked about it on their website today. If you want more info, you can check it out. And we've been talking about where's El Nino, what's going on with it. We're not going to get an El Nino in the classic sense. And that usually is when the equatorial Pacific down here to our south and west ends up a half a degree or more above average. And we tend to see the storm track crank up. Well, we looked like we were heading there in November and December. But now that warming is really not the kind of factor that we thought it would be. So we're not going to see a big time El Nino. But what are we seeing? We've talked about this as well in past months, and that is the warming along the Pacific coast. We have been in a cool phase of the Pacific along the west coast for a good portion of the 2000s. In fact, it really reached its peak in the late 90s, really nice and warm. We saw a really good storm track here, but then it's been cooling. Now, these phases go much longer out here in the Pacific, and what we end up seeing is these things take decades to change. What we're starting to see this year is a nice warm phase out here in the Pacific. That is leading to more moisture here across the Southwest. So even though we don't have an El Nino in place, we have a nice warm Pacific here, and that is helping to bring some moisture in. In fact, the Albuquerque area has done fairly well, and really we haven't seen this type of warming since, again, the late 90s, and it's led to things being nice and wet here in the metro area, and it's likely to keep us fairly wet through the rest of the winter. Now, long-term warming in the Pacific, a flip, say, to a warmer conditions on the whole would help our overall drought in a major way. It is one of the big contributors. And again, if you want to see more on this, check out the NWS Albuquerque website. They do a really good job of explaining that. As far as what's going on right now, mainly clear skies across the area, 34 degrees, east-northeast winds at 3 miles an hour. Temperatures across the north, anywhere from the single digits in Alamosa all the way up to the low 30s around Las Vegas. As far as what's happening with satellite and radar, well, we got a storm system going into the Pacific Northwest. That's not headed in here, unfortunately. It may skim us and drive some cooler air in across the east side of the state late Saturday into Sunday, but more than anything else, we're going to be looking at sunshine, quiet weather conditions on Friday, quiet weather conditions on Saturday as well, and even into Sunday, it's going to be tough to get a cloud, much less anything in the way of storms. But there is a storm on the horizon, and admittedly, there is some doubt, but all signs do point to, at least we've got something headed in our direction. The question is what? We've got a couple models that say, well, things that kind of break up and come in two different pieces. One rolls on through mid-late next week, and then another one sort of sits off the west coast spinning and doesn't really come in. If this scenario ends up playing out next week, it's not necessarily going to be a great storm for us. There's another model that says, wait a minute, this thing is going to be a big timer. It'll set up over Arizona, eventually coming into New Mexico late next week, and that could mean some serious snow across the board. We'll wait and see what happens. But it's good to at least have options on the table. 44 in Durango, 42 in Pagosa Springs, and 39 in Alamosa. You can see 7-day forecasts all reflect the possibility of getting that storm in here Wednesday and Thursday of next week. But until we get there, things are pretty quiet. And that includes the Southwest, where highs tomorrow mainly are going to be in the 50s. Over to the Southeast, a lot of sunshine on the way, high 50s, low 60s, getting even warmer by Saturday with a high of 67 in Roswell, 59 in Springer, 62 in Roy, 63 in Conchas, and Wednesday into Thursday, that's action time for the Northeast and the Northern Mountains, but a great weekend in the mountains if you want to do some hiking, skiing, or boarding. 49 in Tejeras, 48 in Estancia, and 46 in Edgewood. And finally, right here in the metro area, temperatures teens and 20s to start, 40s and 50s to finish. Your 7-day forecast shows we wait in anticipation for that next storm, but until we get there, we might as well have perfect weather, and we do.
Why not?
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Mark.